What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to be looking at a bit of an interesting Pokemon in ARAQUANID. Now, ARAQUANID is a water bug type Pokemon, and we're going to be using it to bully some legends at 3000 elo. Today we're pairing it with a Togedemaru and a Galarian Moltres in the back. Now, Togedemaru is a very glassy Pokemon. It's kind of outshined by Morpeko at this point. However, if you wanted to run a similar variant of this team that's a little bit more meta, you could actually run Thunderfang, Steelix on the lead, Golisopod as your safe swap, and then Mandibuzz in the back. That's the meta version of this team, but we're having some fun today. So without further ado, let's hop into some battles. I was actually recording this previously. By the way, great lead. Well, not a great lead because what we have to do here is go for a wild charge. We have two better answers in the back, but Psywaves are resisted. So I may as well chip first or grab a shield and then pivot. And they end up throwing their energy, which is great here because ARAQUANID is our sponge. Yeah, I already recorded this, but in the middle of it during my recording, it just crashed and it wiped my recording. So that was great. So we're recording it again, woohoo! They end up meeting my ARAQUANID with a Galarian Moltres of their own, but they have the shiny, so kind of a flex. They are able to connect with an Ancient Power and get a full Sucker Punch farm down, but what that should allow me to do is come back in with my Togedemaru, get a full Thundershock farm down. All of their charge moves are resisted, so even though I got one turn lag, I should be able to fully farm them down after this Ancient Power. And even though they do get one more Sucker Punch that they shouldn't have gotten, I can get to a super effective Fell Stinger against the Grumpig to pick up the knockout, and then I have a boosted wild charge for unfortunately the Tinkaton in the back, which really sucks because Tinkaton is a complete wall to the Galarian Moltres. They farm up to the play rough. I see only one win con left in this game. I'm calling a Bulldoze bait, and it's the Bulldoze bait. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna overfarm here, go for the Brave Bird, hoping that my opponent lets it go, thinking it's only an Ancient Power. And if I can connect with this damage, then maybe I have a win con. And my opponent does let that go. At this point, I know it's going to be another Bulldoze bait, but I'm forced to just shield this up. They do not get the defense drop, which is huge. Now I'm committing to a fast move farm down. I have Togedemaru in the back, so we're able to take that win. Yep, Galarian Moltres is a Tinkaton counter confirmed. Into the next match, we have a bit of a tough lead in Dusknoir, but they're actually on Hex, and they only commit to a Shadow Punch, maybe not willing to let me outpace to get to the wild charge. What that allows me to do is it allows me to overfarm pretty significantly here and now go for the wild charge. The opponent decides to let that go, which is kind of surprising, and now all I have to do is shield once and I can get a full Thundershock farm down. What does my opponent want to send in here? They send in a Hackmo, and I do not have a good answer to Hackmo, but I pivot into my ARAQUANID, and ARAQUANID is actually met with a Jumpluff. Now this is a good thing to lure out because obviously we would like to see this on our Togedemaru, and we do have neutral Bug Buzzes here for the Jumpluff. Now Jumpluff is going to connect with an Acrobatics, but ARAQUANID is so bulky that we can actually survive that, make it to another Bug Buzz, and we actually get the chance of lowering their defense, which is really nice. They are forced to throw energy, or else I would make it to another charge move, and it is just the Aerial Ace. So now we know my opponent's entire moveset. I end up trying to snipe with a wild charge, but they end up making a really nice catch onto their Hackmo. However, that's kind of what I needed, because I needed damage onto this thing. Sucker Punches and Ancient Power are resisted, and we weren't able to get an energy lead for my Moltres. So in comes Dragon Claw. I know they're already at 2, so I have to let one go. And here comes the second one. Now the question is, can I get it into farm down range? And it looks like not quite. So I'm going to be forced to throw the Ancient Power here. This will be enough, even though it is resisted, to pick up the knockout, and my opponent decides to let that go, and we get the boost, which is massive, because now I can make it to another Ancient Power. They're forced to respect this damage, and I can in comes my Togedemaru, and this is only enough for an Aerial Ace, and Aerial Ace is double resisted on the Togedemaru, so we lived that on 1 HP, able to make it to the Wild Charge, and from this range, Wild Charge is enough to KO the Jumpluff, and we're able to take that win. Togedemaru into Malamar. Now this is a kind of a neutral lead in the sense that we have double super effective Fell Stinger, but it's not a very hard hitting move. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to farm up to the Wild Charge, and now I'm baiting with a double super effective move, which seems kind of strange, and they do shield that up. Their Psywaves are resisted here, so I am just going to farm up. I am going to shield this back because I may as well commit my shield back. And are they willing to call a bait twice is the question. Or not call a bait, but they actually end up letting that go. In comes a Drapion, but I'm already at another Wild Charge before they're even able to get to a Crunch. Wild Charge connects, they're completely sacrificing, or maybe they weren't, maybe they're trying to call a bait, and I guess my opponent is just going to resign the match. Picking up a great lead in the next match, Togedemaru into Dragonite. Now Dragonite has resisted fast move pressure here, and they only farm up to a Dragon Claw, so I am definitely just going to let this go. This is resisted damage, and yes, off of only resisted damage, they have gotten us deep into the red before we're even throwing our charge move. However, Wild Charge from this range picks up the knockout, and what is in the back but a Sand Slash. Now the awkward part here is I can connect with a Wild Charge, but my opponent does shield that up, and I'm forced to stay in because Moltres does not want to see the Sand Slash. But you know what does? ARAQUANID, because ARAQUANID has a really unique typing similar to Golisopod that allows it to completely wall its moveset. And they have a Dugong in the back, which we also wall on ARAQUANID. However, we do need to align our Moltres somewhere in this endgame. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for the Ancient Power here. Ancient Power is super effective damage, and it does grab the final shield from my opponent. And I'm definitely just going to commit both shields in this matchup because my ARAQUANID doesn't need any. I completely wall the moveset on both Dugong and Sand Slash, so we're going to save this energy, make sure they don't go for the catch, and they don't. So now connecting with the harder hitting Brave Bird, yes, it does more damage than an Ancient Power, even though it's super effective. They do get the full farm down, however, we can come in, farm them down. They will be able to debuff us with an Icy Wind. However, Icy Wind does abysmal damage. They come back in with the Sand Slash. Here comes a Water Pulse. Is the Icy Wind debuff going to make a difference? It looks like not quite. It looks like the Infestations plus the Water Pulse should be enough to two-shot the Sand Slash. And look at this damage. Ice Punch does absolutely nothing. They're going to need to get to 3 before I get to another Water Pulse. And here comes another Water Pulse. We're able to connect that and then get the farm down of the Dugong, and we're able to take that win. Into the next match, picking up a great lead, Jumpluff. And Jumpluff is completely walled here, and my opponent is staying in. So a bit of a strange play. Clearly their core broken. Whatever is in the back does not want to see it Togedemaru. They full send the Acrobatics. That is double resisted damage, and it does absolutely nothing to Togedemaru, even though we are so glassy. Now I'm going to go for the Wild Charge. I'm going to throw 1 and the move, because then that is the Sampitai with their second out of Acrobatics. Now Acrobatics is a hard-hitting move, and I just debuffed my defense to the floor. So I'm actually going to respect a shield back, even though it is double resisted. And that's the problem with this Pokemon. However, we're able to get to another Wild Charge, able to outpace on what would be a Sampitai with an Aerial Ace. But my opponent just lets that go. In comes a Drapion. We're able to make it to another Wild Charge. Is my opponent willing to commit a shield on the Drapion? No, they're not. So I'm going to instantly pivot into my ARAQUANID, force them to throw some energy, and we save our Togedemaru for later, which is fantastic, and reset that debuff. In the back, it is a Morpeko. Now, what we need to do is grab a shield from this Morpeko, because that way our Togedemaru can at least connect with some damage, or we can get some Ancient Power damage onto this Morpeko. So we actually do grab that final shield. This does force them to throw their energy, and then they will be back into the electric form. However, once they connect with this Aura Wheel, they're energy dry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back with my Togedemaru. I'm able to make it to a Felsinger, and this is super effective damage. The Bug Buzz did lower their defense, so it nearly KOs. This forces them to throw their energy. And just like that, with a 1 HP Drapion in the back and a Morpeko at 1 HP, they're going to get farmed down. In comes the Drapion, and my opponent just resigns the match. Into the next match, we've got Togedemaru into Drapion. So how I like to play out this matchup is I let my opponent throw a charge move first. Once they throw the Crunch, then we are comfortable throwing the Wild Charges. And what I like to do is I farm up 3 more, because that is right before they make it to an Aqua Tail. Now they have enough for an Aqua Tail, so what I do is I bait with a Felstinger. That way if they shield that, I can instantly click the charge move, and this is on the CMP tie, and Togedemaru is 100% going to win CMP here. They end up letting that go, so we actually end up winning the 0 to 1 shield scenario, and they have an Azumarill in the back, which means we can also get to a Wild Charge against the Azumarill, and we've grabbed both shields with our Togedemaru, and we have switch advantage, which is absolutely massive. I don't have a great answer to Azumarill. I'm completely walled by both of our Pokemon in the back here. However, Sucker Punches will not do enough. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to let Araquanid take all of this energy and this fast move pressure because it is so bulky. I just need to get rid of the Azumarill, and this is not a great matchup for the Azumarill either. Yes, they have neutral play roughs, but it takes them so long to get there, and our Bug Buzz are still doing some decent damage, and they're getting potential defense drops here. And while we didn't get any in this matchup, we are usually fishing for it. In comes another charge move. At this point, I know I can go for 2 shield Galarian Moltres, and they have a Drifblim in the back, so yeah, my opponent is just going to resign the match. Great lead in the next match, Togedemaru into Corviknight. Now, what should be a good lead is not as great because they actually have double super effective fast move pressure. However, they only farm up to an Iron Head here, and Iron Head is double resisted. It's single resisted on Seal, single resisted on Electric, and Sky Attack is also double resisted here. So all of the main moves that Corviknight learns are double resisted. They end up letting that Wild Charge go, getting fully one-shot. Here comes another Wild Charge. They let that go on the Drapion as well, and now in comes Araquanid to soak up that damage, and it's another Morpeko in the back. Now Morpeko is going to be met with a Bug Buzz, and my opponent hasn't used any shields here, so they're going to be committing all of these shields onto this Morpeko. However, I need to get that last shield from this Morpeko, and even though they will outpace me to 2 Aura Wheels here before I can get to this charge move, I know I need to grab that final shield, because what I need to do is I need to be able to come back in with my Togedemaru and get to a super effective Fell Stinger. That's the only way I see winning this matchup. So what I do is I connect with the Bug Buzz, I instantly pivot. Can I survive 4 Thunder Shocks? And I can on 1 HP, able to make it to the Fell Stinger. This is super effective damage. It puts the Morpeko at 1 HP, come in with Araquanid, force them to throw their energy, just completely sacrifice it here. And now we have a full HP Moltres against the world. They have a low HP Morpeko and a 1 HP Drapion, so yeah, they're just going to resign the match. Tough lead the next match, probably going to get out of this matchup after 1 Thunder Shock, but instead my opponent actually gets out of the matchup first. So I'm going to respond with my Araquanid. Guzzlord here is a dark type, so it does take super effective damage from Bug, and they do full send a Crunch. Crunch does some pretty sizable damage, so if they want to win this by committing 2 shields, they can. And that looks like that's exactly what my opponent is going to do. We do get the defense drop on the Bug Buzz, which is nice, because that means these infestations are going to do more damage. And while Infestation is more known for its energy generation rather than its damage, they are still doing some decent chip here. And we are going to commit the shield in order to grab both shields back from my opponent. They end up committing both shields, so I'm going to instantly pivot back into my Togedemaru. They end up going for a resisted Dragon Claw, which is a bit of an interesting play. Maybe just hoping I wouldn't shield that so that they could potentially fast move down with their Furret. I know 1 Wild Charge is not enough to KO there, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for a Fell Stinger. Now, Fell Stinger doesn't debuff my attack, and doesn't debuff my defense, and it boosts my attack. So then I can throw the Wild Charge on the CMP tie with the next charge move, and this will pick up the knockout. What's going to come in here? It's the Talonflame. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw 1 Thunder Shock, connect with the Wild Charge. That way the Incinerate does not register. That connects, it one-shots. I'm going to instantly reset that debuff onto my Araquanid. Then I can come in with my Togedemaru, get to another super effective Fell Stinger, and Fell Stinger from this range, not quite enough to KO, but they are in 1 Sucker Punch farm down range, and this at worst is a Dragon Claw, so we know we can survive this. My opponent ends up going for a Crunch, Hail Mary, hoping there's a Hoopa in the back, and we are able to take that win. Great lead in the next match, Togedemaru into Jumpluff. My opponent safe switches into a Marowak, and they did massive damage with that 1 Mud Slap, but we have a very solid answer here in Araquanid. Araquanid resisting the Mud Slaps, and while they do have super effective Rock Slide, we are a very bulky Pokemon, so we can survive that very comfortably, and they have no ability to farm down. I can then make it to a Water Pulse. I grab a shield from my opponent, so I have a feeling that they're going to bait here and make a play for Switch. They do end up going for the bait. However, I can overfarm here, go for the Water Pulse. I will be able to grab 2 shields from my opponent, and I really would like to maintain alignment here. So are they going to fight for it? Looks like they're going to go for the full farm down, maybe losing track of Infestation, Araquanid's energy. I'm able to make it to another Water Pulse, so now we grab shield advantage and switch advantage, and what's in the back is a Lapras. Now, Lapras Also doesn't have a great matchup into our Togedemaru because Togedemaru is a steel type that resists Psywave. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to shield up, I'm going to overfarm as much as I can, but then my opponent makes a nice play and they switch into their jump bluff. Now I can just align my jump bluff with the Moltres, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect with a Wild Charge, in comes the Moltres. The worst that they can do here, well, I guess they could have Dazzling Gleam, but most are on Acrobatics or Aerial Ace. Or Energy Ball. This one looks like they're on Energy Ball because they do just settle for the Aerial Ace. I end up going for an undercharge here because I want to come out loaded with energy and actually get the boost once again, which is crazy. They do connect with another Aerial Ace and they make a nice play. They pivot into their Lapras, but this is a boosted Ancient Power. So in comes a boosted Ancient Power. That does huge damage. My opponent is forced to throw their energy, but at this point they are going to be energy dry. So I can Thunder Shock, farm down the Lapras, and at this point all I have to do is throw a Wild Charge, but I farm up to back, committing the Wild Charge. Wild Charge at 1 HP does KO the jump bluff, and we are able to take that win. Really bad lead in the next match. Togedemaru into Magcargo. I'm going to throw one Thunder Shock, defer the Incinerate onto my Araquanid, and now I'm in a tough matchup because this is a Pokemon that beats all three of my Pokemon. They have super effective Rock Tomb for my Pokemon in the back, and they have super effective Incinerate and the Overheat. So they then respond with a Feraligatr, and maybe not understanding of our energy, they actually just let that go, maybe not expecting me to be at a Bug Buzz again. But unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to make it to a Water Pulse, so I actually pivot into my Togedemaru. Now, that may seem like a strange play, but this forces my opponent to full send the Overheat, and they actually do. I kind of expected my opponent to bait because I am on Togedemaru, but I now have my Araquanid later for a catch, and while this is a double debuffed attack move, I'm still forced to commit the shield because Rock Tomb is still super effective. And my Moltres is lagging like crazy here. I don't know if you can see that. So I'm actually forced to only go for 6 Sucker Punches as opposed to 7, which is unfortunate because that leaves them at 1 HP. But because of that, they are forced to throw their energy right away. So I actually make a catch, and that also resets my debuff and what is in the back but a Grumpig. Now Grumpig, normally a super strong Pokemon, but this is a matchup where it gets absolutely crapped on. Here comes an Ancient Power. I was just fishing for the boost. At this point, this is a fast move damage game. I have to live one Dynamic Punch, so I let that go. Psywaves are double resisted. Can they make it to back-to-back Dynamic Punches? They cannot, so we're able to get the full farm down, able to farm down the Magcargo, and somehow we're able to take that win. But yeah, so that is Araquanid at Legend Elo. I did have to record this video twice, so I apologize if I didn't seem as into it the second time around. I hope I was, but yeah, this team was honestly a lot of fun. I was kind of shocked at how well Togedemaru was until I started seeing people realize this is a long day. There's a lot of battles. I want to get through them faster. And then I started seeing Mudslappers on the lead every game, and I was like, nope, time for a new video. So hopefully we'll have more content coming soon. But yeah, this was a fun team that I just want to take a look at. Obviously, a more meta version. Thunderfang, Steelix on the lead. Gillespot is your safe swap. Mandibuzz in the back, and you're golden. If you're looking at Climb Elo, that's a very solid team. But this is too. Like, this is honestly a very solid team. I was beating legends with it, so clearly it's nothing to scoff at. You do have to be very aware of your energy all the time, and you have to be good at counting and catching and all that stuff, so to make it work. But yeah, overall solid team. But that's gonna be it for me from this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, peace.